functions of data link layer. So it provides services to the network layer, right? Obviously, every layer in the layered architecture, it provides services to its immediate higher layer. So here the immediate higher layer is network layer, and it also deals with frame synchronization. So it means you know that the data that we handle at data link layer is in terms of frames. So somehow we should define the boundaries of the frames. It means that where it begins and where the frame ends. That is a part of a frame synchronization. And the flow control is addressing the fast sender and the slow receiver. Okay. So if the sender is so fast and the receiver is not able to, cope up with that, then we'll try to so we have to coordinate a fast sender and a slow receiver. That comes under flow control, and we can also try to detect and correct the errors at data link layer. So that is comes under error control, and physical address or MAC address we are going to use, which is of 48 bit in length. So that is addressing, and link management is a part of LLC sublayer. Okay, let us see how it works. So you can see the summary of DLL design. So it provides services to the network layer, and framing, as I told you, boundaries of the frame we are going to discuss in this lecture, and flow control, fast sender and slow receiver, how you coordinate them, error control, how to detect and correct errors. If you remember, we have seen a few such techniques in the laboratory, right? So I myself, I have explained to a few batches that Hamming code, right, and cyclic redundancy check. So those techniques we'll discuss here under error control, and stop and wait protocols. This ARQ protocols, this addresses the flow control. Okay, so at frame level. So we'll try to address the fast sender and the slow receiver scenarios at frame level using these protocols, elementary data link protocols, and also we'll look at HDLC and point-to-point protocols. So let us start with the services. What are the design issues and services at data link layer? The frame synchronization, it talks about the defining the boundaries of the frames, where frame is beginning and where it is ending, and where exactly data is sitting in the frame. That is frame synchronization. And flow control is the fast sender and the slow receiver. Make sure that there won't be any loss. Okay, so there should not be any data loss. So somehow you have to coordinate such scenarios. And error control, it talks about error detections and corrections. Few techniques only limited only to detect, like CRC, and a few techniques like Hamming code. Apart from error detection, also to certain extent we can correct the errors at bit levels. And addressing, so there should be unique MAC address or physical address. Link management is a part of logical link control sublayer. So where it is going to look after the call initiations, maintenance, and terminations for data transfer. This is the encapsulation procedure. You know that the incoming data for the data link layer is a packet that comes from network layer. So the packet is processed at the data link layer, right, in the form of frames. And you know that the peculiarity of this data link layer is that apart from header, you also have a trailer. In the rest, all other layers, you are going to append only header during encapsulation. And on the other side, at the receiver, if you see, the header and trailer is removed at the data link layer of the receiver, and the payload will be given, submitted to its higher layer as a packet. And it's just to understand that the difference between virtual path and actual path or physical path, right? So you can see the layer 2, the peer entities, data link layer. You can see the dotted lines, right? So you can see in the first figure that it is a dotted lines. It indicates that virtual path. But what is the actual path or physical path? It is coming through. So layer 3 will give it to layer 2, layer 2 will give the content to layer 1, and layer 1 the one who actually transmits the data through the physical medium, and the reverse journey takes place at the receiving end. This is a actual path or a physical path. So why exactly this virtual path concept comes? Why do we talk about this? So in the figure 1, if you see, there is some connection that is showing with dotted lines. Why it is? I have explained this during the layered architecture.
So because the particular layers, they feel that they are connected because one layer performs encryption and another performs decryption. So they feel that they are connected. That's why.
Exactly correct. That the peer entities, the layers, they feel that they are directly connected, because being a user, as and when I type chat message, immediately I'll get a reply from my friend. So I feel that I am directly connected to my friend. But what is the real story? The real story is that whatever I type English, it goes to the lower layers, and they convert into machine independent format, and that will be given to the further lower layers like transport layer, network, DLL, and physical layers. So and each layer will do some processing and append the headers, and it will be traveling all the way through the medium, and at the receiver the exact reverse procedures happens at the corresponding layers, right? And that's how the data will be delivered to my friend. Okay, so that is the actual path. Now coming to the kind of services at the data link layer, so we can classify the services provided by data link layer to its higher layer, which is network layer, as unacknowledged connectionless, acknowledged connectionless, and acknowledged connection oriented. So let us talk one by one. Connectionless service means we are not going to establish the connection with the receiving party before data transfer. Okay, so as and when I have data, I am going to transmit to the receiver without prior establishing the connection. That is called a connectionless service. Okay, so acknowledged means whatever I transmit, I get the acknowledgement. So I can come to know that the receiver is successfully received the frame. Unacknowledged means I am not going to get any acknowledgement. I am not sure that the receiver has received the frame. Okay, that is an unacknowledged service. So now the first one is unacknowledged connectionless. So I am not going to establish the prior connection for my data transmissions, and also there won't be any acknowledgements at the sender for the data transmissions. So sender, obviously he doesn't know whether the receiver has received the frame successfully or not. So that's about the first service. Second one is, even though it is a connectionless service, but still we get acknowledgements. So sender will have an idea that the success of the frame at the receiver. Third one is the most reliable one, where you are going to establish the connection with the received party before your data transmissions, and also you get ACKs. So it is a kind of, see, as and when you establish the connection, so you are sure that your frames will be transmitted properly, so with a quite a high reliable way. Okay, so compared to connectionless. Apart from that, you also get ACKs. Okay, so acknowledgements you get, it means that so it is highly reliable out of all these three services. So now let us understand why we do all this. Okay, so when we go for unacknowledged connectionless, and when we go for acknowledged connection oriented, all that. So can someone give some example of the first service, unacknowledged connectionless service?
Streaming,
uh,
live stream.
how?
Because when someone is like, for example, when it is sending the video data, it first of all, the first one is actually used if you do not, if you don't want this acknowledgement from the other side, correct? So if you are
No,
streaming
I
something live,
expecting some applications in our regular life that we use. Which application that comes under this kind of service? Okay, so let us take broadcasting, a live cricket match. What is that?
That's what I told. Live stream is a kind of first unacknowledged connectionless service, right?
Yeah. So all the real-time traffic that you transmit comes under this. Okay, unacknowledged connectionless service. So you are not going to establish the prior connections. Acknowledged connectionless service. That means you are not going to establish the connection, but still you get some acknowledgement. Any application? Any idea?
Or Wi-Fi.
Wi-Fi. Okay, so Wi-Fi. You mean to say you are sending something through Wi-Fi? Is it so?
Yes, sir. Then we will get the we will get to know if it is sent or not. Like we will have a feedback about it, but it is connectionless at the same time.
Yes. So for example, email application. So you are not going to establish the connection, right? But still you will have some acknowledgement that so and so mail is sent.
So for unacknowledged, it can be spam email also, junk email.
Junk emails, yes, exactly. So you are not sure that it is received, but still with one click you can send to multiple people without expecting acknowledgement. Yes, that is true. Coming to the last application service, that is acknowledged connection oriented.
Phone call.
Phone call. Do you really expect acknowledgement for everything that you transmit during the phone call?
So, but it's connection oriented, I guess.
Obviously, it's connection oriented. What about acknowledgements? So, for example, financial transactions, right? So, when you do online banking, so first you will connect with the server, then you do transactions and you will get acknowledgements, right? It's a quite highly reliable one. So here the whole point is that when you are not happy to wait, okay, for to establish the connection, then you opt for connectionless service. And apart from that, when you really not bothered in the sense when you are sure that the data will be received by your receiver without any loss, in that case you can go for unacknowledged services. Okay, so for example, if you take wide LAN, so in the wide LAN the distance is very less, and since it is a wide connection, so the errors is very few. Okay, so maybe out of 1 lakh or 10 lakhs, there may be hardly one bit error. So in that case, you can go for unacknowledged connectionless services. So wherever you feel that it is the link is highly reliable, then you go for unacknowledged. But in the case of wireless communications, so you have to have acknowledged, because you may not sure that the data frames are received properly. Okay, so like that we can classify the services that is provided by the data link layer. See what happens, see when you play with acknowledge based services, so whatever the frame that you transmit, you get ACKs, right? So what happens if the ACK is lost? ACK means acknowledgement, okay, so which comes from the receiver. So if ACK is lost, how you are going to deal with? Frame is successfully received by the receiver, so and the receiver also sent back the acknowledgement. Unfortunately, acknowledgement is lost. What you are going to do now as a sender?
The sender will assume that the receiver didn't get the frame, so you'll have to resend.
Yeah, so sender is going to retransmit the same frame. So again, receiver, what it does? it is going to ignore it, because it has already received the same frame. So it's a duplication at the receiver, so it will ignore it. But the sender, it expects the ACK. So as long as the sender do not receive ACK, it is going to retransmit the same frame. So which is not a good idea. Okay. So that is about the kind of services. Then coming to the functions, one is a frame synchronization, framing. Here the idea is that how to identify the boundaries of the frames, and why should we do frames? So why can't you handle the packet that comes from the network layer? Why can't you transmit the same? Why you try to convert into frames? Is the reason is that the packet may be large in size. So if you straight away transmit that a large size of the packet, then at the routers, okay, so in the communication subnet, there may not be buffer space. So that may be one reason. And the other one is when you send such a large packet, if the packet is arrived at the receiver with few errors, then you are asked to retransmit the entire packet. So instead you try to make it into a smaller frames, so that only that particular frame you are going to retransmit instead of the entire packet. So that's another reason that why we go for framing. And another reason is that if you try to transmit a huge data as a single packet, then the medium is going to be most of the time you are going to use it, the others may not get a chance to use it. So that should not happen. So the medium should not be holded by a particular user. Instead, it should be fairly shared among other users in the network. So keeping all this in mind, it's essential to make frames at the data link layer. So let us check how we can do that. So the incoming data for us is a packet from the network layer. So now we are trying to make it into frames, and how we can achieve that frames. So there are 4 such techniques called character count, flag byte with byte stuffing, and bit stuffing, and physical layer coding. So let us check the first one, the character count. You can see here there are some numbers that indicates, right? So 5, 1, 2, 3, 4 in the figure I am talking about. So all this is a frame content. So the character count technique, what it says is, so 1, 2, 3, 4, you can see that is the data. So there are 4 such characters. Okay, so what you should do is the first field of the frame 1 is 5. So that indicates that the number of characters in the frame, including the count. So the actual characters in the frame 1 is 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 4 characters. And including the count, it is 5. So the first field of frame 1 is 5. Now same way, the second frame, so there are like 6, 7, 8, 9. 4 characters are there. So including the count value, it is 5. So the first field of frame 2 is also 5. Now coming to frame 3, there are altogether 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 7 characters are there. Okay, frame characters, including count, it is 8. So the first field of frame 3 should be 8. So like that it goes. Okay, so framing using character count is that the first field of the frame indicates the number of characters in the frame, including the count value. Hope you understand this point. Now the problem is that you see the second figure. So frame 1 was received properly. Frame 2, it went somewhere wrong. See, the count value, the first field of frame 2, instead of 5, it was flipped to 7. Okay, so 5 became 7. So it means that 5 means 0, 1, 0, 1. 7 is 0, 111. So 1 bit got flipped actually. Okay, so because of that, 5 became 7. So when it became 7, what the receiver does? it is going to consider the following 6 characters as second frame. Agree? So it will always, the receiver always look into the first field. So first field says it is 7. So it means that the following 6 characters is actual frame content. So it will take that characters as frame 2. Then what happened? The following becomes after frame 2 it is 1. So 1 means what? It is the, what is the frame size? Frame size is only 1. It means there is no content. So the 1 indicates that it is the number of characters including the count. So it means no frame content. So same way the next 2. So 2 indicates that frame 4 is the content of frame 4 is only 3. So what is the conclusion out of this? See, the character count works well only when there won't be any errors. So if there exists any errors, especially in the count field, the first field of the frame, if there are any errors in the first field of the frame, then the boundaries of the successive frames gets changed. So in this example, the first frame there was no issue. So let us assume in the first frame the count value is 5 and following 4 characters are your frame content. Fine. So now the frame content 1, 2, 3, 4, out of that, if there is any errors, so that affects only that particular frame. It won't affect other frames. But if the count value is changed, okay, so if the count value, that is the first field of any given frame, is having errors, then the successive frame boundaries will change. So that is the drawback of this character count. Any doubt on this? Okay, then we'll move to the second one. Quite interesting. So let us see this. Flag bytes with byte stuffing. So it indicates that so there is some special character. There is some special character. So which indicates the beginning and end of the frames. So you can see here flag. Okay. So this is 1 byte. So 8-bit value. Okay. So flag is 8-bit value. Usually it is 0610. Flag is 0610, total 8-bit. So that is the flag byte. So what you do is, when you are making a frame, so you know that the frame contains the payload. Payload means the data, and it is preceded by header and it will be end with trailer. So this is your frame. Fine. So now, in order to identify the boundaries of the frame, what you need to do is you append this flag character at the beginning. Okay, so that indicates the beginning of the frame. After the frame, at the end, you append one more flag. It indicates end of the first frame and beginning of the second frame. So like that it goes. Okay. So now the question is that this flag pattern, so as I told you, 0610 is a flag pattern, right? So that pattern also can be a part of the payload, right? Then you should not misinterpret that as a flag. Try to understand carefully. It is challenging for me also to explain on the PPT. So if it is a board, I am much more comfortable. However, try to understand this. So this flag, so FLAG I am putting here, but at the end of the day, what is this? It is a matter of bit stream. Okay, so in the reality, it is a bit stream. Flag is a bit stream. So that is what I told you, 0610. So that is 1 byte. So that indicates a flag. Fine. So if this 0610, if it is a part of payload, then how we are going to handle it? So there are chances that it will be misinterpreted as flag. That means end of the frame at the receiver. When you are extracting this frame, so 0610, which is actually payload, can be misinterpreted as flag. So that indicates end of the frame. Correct? So now what we should do is we should go for some other thing called escape character. Okay, so escape byte or escape character. So what is this? So it is again a special bit pattern. Okay, it is again a special bit pattern. So we are going to append that. So you try to understand this example properly. So the first one, on the top there is a payload. On the top there is a payload. So the payload, so payload means data. Data comes from the network layer. Please mute your speakers, microphones, please. Please mute your microphones. Okay, so now you see on the top the data comes from the network layer, consists of what? Flag pattern as well as escape pattern. There are chances, right? So now how we are going to handle it? So while making the frames, we know that the frame begins with a flag character followed by header. Then this flag is there, right? So this should not be misinterpreted as end of the frame. So what we do is, so we will precede this this flag by escape character. So what I did was I kept one escape character just before the flag byte. Understand? So this is an included one. This escape ESC, that character, that is one character, 8-bit. So deliberately I am introducing it. So how it helps, let us see that later. So one escape character I have inserted before the flag character in the data. Same way, even escape character is also a part of data. Whatever the bit pattern that you use for escape character, the same may be possible, right? So that is also can be a part of data. No matter, still you proceed with escape character again. So the conclusion here is that whenever you encounter flag character or escape character in the user's data, you just proceed with escape character. That's all. The flags will be anyhow, it is at the beginning and end of the frame. But if the same flag pattern or escape pattern comes in the user's data, then what you should do is you should proceed by escape character. Okay, at the receiver, how exactly it helps you to identify the frames? So at the receiver, what happens? The flag pattern comes first. So we know that it is a beginning, then followed by header. And whenever escape comes in the receiving data, you omit. The first escape you omit. Followed by is your data. So that is how this technique works. So wherever you get first escape, you just omit it. Followed by is your data. So in that way, the first escape is coming, right? So I will omit that. Followed by is a flag pattern, but still it is considered as data. Then there is a second escape, that white space, right? So that I will omit. Followed by is my data. So followed by is indicates the escape pattern, but it is a data because it was preceded by escape. So always the first escape will be omitted and followed by is my data. So that's how I extract the data. Is this clear?
Yes, sir.
Very good.
Yes,
Next.
sir.
Yeah. So next is, yes, yeah. So these are a few more situations. So A and B is part of data, and in that even flag pattern is also part of data. So what we should do? You should precede by escape character. That's it. So in the second situation, if escape itself is a part of data, then what you should do? You should you have to precede by escape character. So in the third situation, you can see both escape and flag are part of data. So no matter what you should do is just you have to precede by escape character for both. So that means the escape character is preceded by escape. So you will get two escape characters, and flag is also preceded by escape. So third escape followed by flag. So like that it goes. And if both are escapes, also no issue. So you have to proceed with one more escape for each. So altogether you will get 4 escapes. At the receiver, what will happen? Always the first escape is omitted. So in this case, in the last scenario at the receiver, when you are extracting from data A, so A character will be received, then the first escape will be omitted, second escape will be considered as data, third escape is omitted, fourth escape is considered as data. So like that it goes. So no matter whether it is a flag pattern or escape pattern is a part of data, your job is just to include one escape character before that. So this is called byte stuffing or character stuffing. Okay, so try to understand this numerical, how to do this. So I have data something like this: A, B, escape, C, escape, flag, flag, D. So now what I am asking you is how to perform byte stuffing or character stuffing on this content. So the data is given to you as A, B, escape, C, escape, flag, flag, D. So now one of you can tell me after character stuffing, what is your output?
A, B, 2 escapes, C, 6 escapes, and so on. Yeah, sorry, 4 escape, 2 flag, and 1 D.
No. Read it carefully. A, B, escape, C, then
4 escapes.
not 4 escapes. It is 1 escape followed by your escape, then again escape followed by flag, then again escape followed by flag, then D. Okay, so you can see the solution. So A, B, then you have escape, right? So escape should be preceded with escape character. So you got 2 escapes followed by C. Then again what you got? One more escape in the data. So you have to precede that with escape. So you have 2 escapes. Then you have flag in the data. So flag also should be preceded with 1 escape. So escape, third escape followed by flag. Then one more flag is there in the data, so it should be preceded with escape. So escape, flag, and D. So this is how stuffing you should do, character stuffing. And the other question is that what is the format of output frame format? So output frame, what it says, the stuffed data should be ended. The boundaries of the frame should be with flags. So you have to append the flag character on both the sides. So the first flag indicates the beginning of the frame, and the last flag indicates the end of the frame, and also the beginning of second frame. So this is about byte stuffing. Any doubt on this? No?
So one thing I wanted to ask, when you showed us an example of when there is an escape and a flag, then you can append 2 escapes before it. so as to
No, not two escapes. See, when you have escape and flag, right? So what you should do, since you have escape, you have to precede that escape with escape. So one escape is stuffed one. The first escape is stuffed one. Second escape is the part of the data. Then followed by escape, that is stuffed one, followed by flag. So you will get three escapes followed by flag.
okay.
Okay, so if you understand this properly, so I am giving something like you take it meeting, MEETING. Okay, so this is the data I am giving it to you, and capital E is your escape character. Okay, capital E is your escape character, and M is your flag character. Hope you are noting down this. Meeting is the data given to you, MEETING. So what I am expecting you is you do character stuffing for this data. So in order to do the character stuffing, I am giving escape character is capital E and flag character is capital M. So do character stuffing and tell me the answer.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
So we'll get E, M, then
One second.
string.
Let me do it. Let me complete myself. Yes. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, we'll get E, M, then four E's in a row, and then
Yes.
TING.
Very good, very good. So whatever you are stuffing it, so the good practice that you should underline it. So that characters, whatever the characters you are stuffing, that should be underlined like that. Okay. So now I am giving another example, and I'll pick up one lucky person from this participant list, and I'll ask you. So the data I am giving it to you is committee. Okay. Committee. COMMITTE, committee. Out of this, I am giving you same thing. Okay, so let me take the yes, yeah. E is escape and M is flag. Fine, same rule you apply. E is escape and M is flag. So do character stuffing and let me know. I'll pick up one guy. Okay, so that lucky person should answer this. If he is not responding, I'll consider as absent. COMMI. Yes, I have finished it. Abir Shankar Prasad.
So am I audible?
Yes.
Yes. The answer is escape COM.
No, come
M.
again.
Escape C. I am assuming that C
Escape
is.
C. Where is escape, man? Escape is E, right? Capital E is your escape character, and capital M is your flag character.
So I made a mistake. I assumed C as escape. I'll just change it once again.
Okay, go ahead and Abhiram
Sir,
Chandra. Okay. So Abhiram. Abhiram Chandra.
Since I have changed it accordingly, can I answer now?
That's fine. I can understand Abir that he can do it, but let others also participate. Abhiram Chandra Reddy. Okay, not responding. So means he is not there, simply logged in and roaming somewhere. Can I take it in that way? Asta Grover. Asta Grover. She is also not responding. Aryan Binit. Aryan Binit. Aryan Binit, but not responding. Abhimanyu Borthakur. Abhimanyu Borthakur.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello.
Aryan, tell me the answer, please.
Sir, I don't know.
You don't know. Where you are stuck, may I know, so that I can help you out. Where did you stuck?
Hello.
Yeah, Aryan, tell me, where did you stuck?
Sir, I didn't really understand the question.
Understand the question. Okay. So what's the question given? Can you tell me? Can you repeat the question? What's the word given to you, Aryan?
Hello.
Yeah, Aryan, tell me, what is the word given to you?
Hello.
Yes, sir. Tell me. Aryan Binit, but please tell me what is the question given to you? What is the word that
Sir,
is given to
meeting,
you?
right? That's the word, right?
Huh?
Meeting, right?
It is not meeting. You are somewhere else. Okay. So let's take others. Akhilesh Nalla. Akhilesh Nalla. Not responding. Akhilesh Nalla. Agam Kumar Rai. Agam Kumar Rai. Akhil Bongiri. Akhil Bongiri. Anirudh Nair.
Sir, I've written it in the chat box, the answer.
Anirudh Nair.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, please tell me the answer.
Sir, it will be CEO escape M, escape M, ITT escape E.
No, there is no escape actually. Escape character is what?
E, we will. Okay, so I should
You
say
have
it
to
in the E form.
substitute
Okay.
E, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
COEMEMIT and 4 times E.
Very good, very good. So like that, still anybody is not understanding this, please let me know so that I can take one more example and do that. Okay.
Sir,
So
whenever we say
can you do
escape,
this?
we'll assign some character to escape. Like, so is that what you're saying?
Come again?
Sir, so whenever you say this is the escape character, we assign some character as the escape character, and then we proceed.
You are not going to assign whatever I have given, that you have to substitute in the place of escape. Okay. Okay. So there are 3 examples. Let you take the second one. Okay. So live like a lion, because I like it, because lion has a very good lifestyle. The lifestyle of lion is a very inspirable one. So maybe you can explore that later, but for the time being, you can try to do this. Given that L is escape character and E is flag character. Okay. L is given as escape. So let me do it. L I L E. Spaces you should not disturb. Okay, so there is a space is also a character between the words, so that you should not disturb, so you have to maintain as it is. Yes, let me pick up few more. Ananya Devarkonda, can you answer?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure, but I'm getting ELIV.
No, one
EE.
second. First is E.
First is E, which
How
is
come?
the flag.
Why it is beginning is flag?
Oh,
No, just I asked byte stuffing. So you are correct. If you are making a frame. If you are making entire frame, then you should start with E. That is correct. But at this point of time, I am asking just the output of byte stuffing.
Okay. Then LIV.
No. LIV. How come? When you have L, so L is escape character.
Escape.
So which is part of data. So what you should do? You should proceed with escape character, right?
Yeah, oh yes, sir. So
yeah.
E.
Not E.
LL. Yeah. LL.
Yeah.
IV. LE.
Very
good. IKLE. A. LLION.
Superb. Then one more lucky person will pick up to solve the third question. Third question is that everyone has self-esteem, out of which I am like a frame. Okay. In addition to byte stuffing, give me the entire frame. Just to do this, I'll do it, and we'll pick up one lucky person to answer this. See, the good practice is, you underline whatever you are stuffing it. So then it becomes easy for you to, troubleshoot it if you are going somewhere wrong. Malini Bose, please respond with your answer. The question is the entire frame, okay? It is not simply byte stuffing, so you should give the entire frame structure. Malini Bose. Malini Bose, please respond. Okay, Meghna Raj. Meghna Raj. Meghna Raj Kanchana. Not responding. Lakshmi Sai Ritika.
Sir?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sir, ESEVSERY.
Exactly, correct. Yeah, go ahead. Yes.
HASS.
Yeah.
And SSSELF.
Yes.
And SESSTSEE.
Come again.
Sorry, SESSTSESEME.
Very good. So everyone agrees with her answer?
Max. Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
That's
Yes,
good.
sir.
That's good. Yes. I'm confident that you got it. Okay, let's move to the another one. Yeah. So the third technique is called bit stuffing. So it's still simple. So what you do is, you know that the flag pattern is 0610. Okay, so 0610. The flag pattern is 0610. So there are chances that this flag pattern may be a part of the data. Okay, so that you should not misinterpret as flag. So how to differentiate this flag pattern, which is 0610, and the same pattern which is part of the data? So how to differentiate these two? So that is what the bit stuffing says. So what it says is that the regular flag pattern, which is 0610, that indicates the beginning and end of the frames, that you don't disturb it. You maintain as it is, that 0610 is a flag pattern, flag byte that indicates beginning and end of the frame. But the same pattern, if it is encountered in the user's data, which comes from higher layer, then what you do is, after 5 ones, after 5 continuous ones, you insert 0. Okay, you stuff extra bit which is 0. Okay, after continuous 5 ones. I'll repeat it. In the user's data, you have a long bit stream, zeros and ones. So wherever if you encounter continuous 5 ones, immediately the 6th bit should be a stuffed bit which is 0. So if you do this, then in the user's data, you cannot find any continuous 6 ones. If you find anywhere continuous 6 ones, it means that that is a flag pattern. You got it? So no matter if it is continuous 5 ones or continuous 6 ones or continuous 5 ones 0, there will be different combinations. So after continuous 5 ones, you insert 0 at the sender side, and at the receiving end, after 5 ones that you receive, continuous 5 ones that you receive, the 6th bit you ignore it. Okay, so this resolves the differentiation between flag pattern and the same pattern which is a part of user data. Okay, so now let you take the data is, let you take the data is 0 7 ones 0 7 ones 0 1. So after bit stuffing, what is your output? I'll pick up Nagam Pranay Bharat. Nagam Pranay Bharat. Please tell me the answer. My data is 07101. What's the output of bit stuffing? Nagam Pranay Bharat. Okay, he may be busy with some other things. Lalit Kashyap. Lalit Kashyap. Okay, Namrata Hajarika. Namrata Hajarika.
Sir,
Yeah. Go ahead, madam.
5 ones 0 1 1 0 1.
Very good, very good. So you underline that bit that you are stuffing it, and at the receiver you have to destuff it. Fine. So now the second pattern that I am giving to you is 0 5 ones 0 1. 0 5 ones 0 1. So let me pick up Sai Sujit Reddy. Sai Sujit. Ravulla Sai Sujit. Rishika Devajyoti.
Oh, yes, sir.
Yeah.
So 0 5 ones 0 1 1 0 1.
Come again, madam. So what is that 1101?
Sorry. 0 5 ones 0 0 1.
Very good. So everyone agree with this? So when the data is user 05101, the after bit stuffing, the answer is 05101. So 10 after continuous 5 ones, we are stuffing 0, extra 0, and at the receiver you have to destuff it. Okay, so the next pattern that I'm giving is 06101. 06101. So let me take Ritika K. Ritika K. Ritika K. Can you please answer? Okay, Ria Jain. Ria Jain. Okay. Sakshi Goenka. Sakshi Goenka. Can you answer? Saloni Agarwal. Sanjay K. Sanjay K. Sanjana Rai.
Sir, 0510101.
Very good, very good. So this is how it works. So still, if you have any doubts, please let me know so that we will go to fourth technique. Any doubts on this bit stuffing? No?
Excuse
Okay.
me, sir.
Yes.
Sir, if the data is 0, 5 ones and 1 0, 0, 5 ones and 0, but this is not the flag bit, right? So then why are we stuffing a 0 after the 5th one?
See, it's quite simple. Whenever you encounter, continuous 5 ones,
okay,
you insert the 0.
Sir, but the whole point of bit stuffing is to differentiate it from the data. If the data has a flag bit, the same pattern as flag bit, right?
Yes.
So, but here the data isn't flag bit, so it is just the normal data.
You don't know what is the 6th bit, right? What is the 6th bit that is coming? You don't know.
Okay. Okay.
So
then
when you encounter continuous 5 ones, just to insert 0.
Okay.
The next technique, okay, this I think you can do this. See, when I ask you to make a frame, then make sure that you are, appending 0610 at the beginning and 0610 at the end. Okay, that you should not forget in order to make a complete frame. But in our discussions, all that we have discussed is that just stuffing part. But framing part, if we do it, then the delimiters should be flags. In the case of byte stuffing or character stuffing, the FLAG should be there at both the ends. So FLAG in the sense flag character. So whatever it may be, the character. And when you come to bit stuffing, the same flag pattern, which is 0610, should be the boundaries for the frame. Okay. So you can cross check this. So I want to transmit 0410 followed by 510 followed by 610. So that's the data that I have. Okay. So 0410 5 ones followed by 0, 6 ones followed by 0. So when you stuff it, bit stuffing, 0, 4, 1, 0, there is nothing to do with that. And 5 ones, after continuous 5 ones, you have to stuff the sixth bit as 0, then 0, and you have 6 ones. So after 5 ones, you have to stuff 6th bit as 0. So this, avoids the flag pattern in the user data. The last technique is called physical layer coding technique, where see the frame bits, okay, so it's a binary stream, ones and zeros. So you know that binary ones and zeros, when you do Manchester coding or differential Manchester coding in the physical layer, so either you move from low to high or high to low, correct? So in all the line coding techniques that we have discussed that provides the synchronization, those line coding techniques like return to 0 and Manchester, differential Manchester, in all these cases, you are going low to high or high to low. So in the given bit duration. So what you do is, instead of going from one state to another, you maintain same state. It means high to high or low to low. During the entire bit duration, you maintain same level. So that indicates, boundary of the frame. For the user's data, anyhow you go, from low to high or high to low. So for instance, you take a differential Manchester you are using to represent your binary bits, then either you will move from low to high or high to low. But when I want to represent the boundaries, that the beginning and the end of the frame, then my representation of the bit is high to high or low to low. So this framing that we are doing it at the physical layer, actually, the representation that we do in the physical layer. So that is called physical layer coding technique. So, but the function that we are implementing is framing. Okay, so this is the first function of the data link layer. So next function of data link layer is error control. So when I say error control, it talks about two things. One is error detection and corrections. So there may be chances of a particular bit is an error, or a group of bits also can be errors. So you can see in these examples, only one single bit error is there, and there are multiple bit errors are there, right, in the second figure. So multiple things are there. So fine. So now coming to Hamming codes. For few patches, and so let us look at the fundamental aspects of Hamming codes. So before going to that, let you understand the Hamming distance. Okay, so what is Hamming distance? So XOR operation, it is an XOR operation. So let us take two code words. So in this example, I am taking 10110, another one is 11100. So there are two words, okay, bit words. So I do XOR operation. So after doing XOR operation, I got 01010. So the number of ones in the result, that indicates the Hamming distance. Okay. So for a given two code words, when you do XOR operation, the number of ones in the result is defined as Hamming distance. Hamming distance. So let you take, see here 000011, the result is 011. Number of ones in this result is 2, so Hamming distance is 2. So like that, in the second example 10101 and 410 XOR, you get 01011. So where the number of ones is 3, Hamming distance is 3. So like that, I am defining Hamming distance. Okay, I am defining the Hamming distance. So now like that, if I take a 3-bit words, there are 8 combinations, right? So different combinations you will get. So out of which the Hamming distance, whichever is the minimum, that is the actual Hamming distance that we need to consider. You have to look at all possible pairs of words. So you take this one second example where 5-bit I'm taking. So 5-bit combinations of the code words. So some XR operations will give, the result gives a number of ones as 3, number of ones as 4. So we have to consider the minimum. So the minimum Hamming distance is 3. So this really helps you in defining the Hamming coding to detect and correct the errors. Okay, so that's why I'm doing this minimum Hamming distance. Okay, so how it helps you to guarantee the detection of up to S errors. In all cases, the minimum Hamming distance should be S plus 1. In other words, okay, so I can, if you know the minimum Hamming distance, so that minimum Hamming distance minus 1 gives the number of errors that I can detect. Okay, so for example, if the minimum Hamming distance is 3, then I can detect at most 2 errors. That is the meaning of defining this minimum Hamming distance. So the number of errors that you can detect is minimum Hamming distance minus 1. In the same way, the number of errors that you can correct is minimum Hamming distance minus 1 over 2. So if you arrive at decimal values, then you have to take floor value. So 1.2 floor value is 1. 2.26 floor value is 2. 3.01 floor value is 3. So like that. So I hope you understand why I am defining this minimum Hamming distance. It gives you how many errors you can detect, and out of them how many you can correct. So for instance, let us say minimum Hamming distance is 3. So I can detect at most 2 errors, but how many I can able to correct? 3 minus 1, 2 by 2, 1. So even though I can able to detect 2 errors, but at most I can correct only 1. So that is the purpose of Hamming distance, minimum Hamming distance. So can you quickly answer this? With a minimum Hamming distance of 4, how many errors at most you can detect? Abir Shankar Prasad. With a given minimum Hamming distance of 4, at most how many errors you can detect?
So is the answer 5 and 2?
Come again?
Is the answer 5 and 2?
5 and 2. What do you mean by it? What do you mean by it? 5 errors you can detect and 2 errors you can correct. Is it so?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
No, I don't agree with it. Yes. Arohi Kulkarni.
Yes, sir. So
Yeah.
we can check P and we can correct 4 minus 1 by 2, which is 1.5. So floor value will be 1.
Very good, very good. So when you have a minimum Hamming distance of 4, at most you can detect 3 errors and you can correct only 1 error. So it's a simple substitution in these formulas where D minimum is equal to S plus 1 or S is equal to D minimum minus 1. S is the number of errors that you can detect. And here S is D minimum minus 1 by 2 with the floor value. Okay. So that is how you can do it. Yes. Now quickly understand this. The background of Hamming code. So here what I am trying to do is small n is your code word. Okay, small n is your code word, length of the code word, and small m is the number of data bits, that you want to transmit. And remember, n is always greater than m. N is the length of the code word, which is always greater than the length of the data bits. So now this n, how you will get is, I'm going to add some bits, that is r bits. R bits I'm going to append for the data bits. So n is equal to m plus r. So plus means it is not simple addition, just I'm going to append it. So where I'm going to append, that I have shown in the lab, that in the place of powers of 2. So we'll go to that little later. So now here the point is that what should be the value of m or r? Okay, so for a given m bits, how many r bits I should append? So that's the question here. So there is a simple understanding of theory behind it. However, you can see here it is m plus r plus 1 should be less than or equal to 2 power r. This is the inequality that you need to satisfy to pick up the number of r bits. Okay, so m plus r plus 1 should be less than or equal to 2 power r. Okay, so for instance, I want to send 8 bits of my data. Okay, 8 bits of my data. I want to transmit 8 bits of the data. So my question here is, how many r bits I should derive? How many r bits I should derive? Abhijit Alok. So you substitute in the inequality m plus r plus 1 less than or equal to 2 power r. So 8, m is 8, 8 plus r plus 1. So 9 plus r less than or equal to 2 power r. So you try to pick up the minimum r value that satisfies this inequality. When I keep r equal to 0, 9 less than or equal to 2 power 0, which is 1, not correct. So when I pick up r equal to 1, 9 plus 1, 10 less than or equal to 2 power 1, which is 2, not correct. So like that you go on increasing your r value. So maybe, so let you check for r equal to 3, 9 plus 3, which is 12 less than or equal to 2 power 3, which is 8. So not correct. So what should be the minimum value of r? 9 plus 4 less than or equal to 2 power 4. So 9 plus 4, 13 less than or equal to 2 power 4, which is 16. So this satisfies the inequality. So the minimum value of r is 4 bits. So the catch is that in order to transmit 8 bits of data, the minimum number of r bits that you need to derive is 4 bits. And the length of the code word becomes what? It is m plus r. So 8 plus 4, which is 12 bit, is your length of the code word. Hope you understand this. If so, let me, I want to transmit 7 bit of my data. I want to transmit only 7 data bits. What should be the r value? Minimum r value. I want to transmit 7 data bits. So what should be the minimum r value? Kavya Niju. Kavya Niju, can you answer, please? In order to transmit 7 data bits, how many r bits I should derive, and what is the length of the code word? Kavya Niju. Krishna Prasad Jayakumar.
Yes, sir.
Krishna. Yeah.
So I
Can you
got
please
r
answer?
equal to 4 because 7 plus 1 plus r is less than or equal to 2 to the power r. So r equal to 4.
R equal to
4. So we'll get 12. N is 12.
Very good. Very good. So I hope you understand, for a given number of data bits, you know how many number of minimum R bits that you need to generate. So using this inequality, fine. So now the second question is that, how to derive these bits. So you know the number of bits that you need to derive. So how to derive these bits? I have given, right? So what you should do, you represent the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. These numbers, you try to represent them in powers of 2. That is what I have explained in the lab. So you try to represent these numbers in powers of 2. So for instance, a number 1 can be represented as 2 power 0, number 2, 2 power 1, number 3, 2 power 1 plus 2 power 0, number 4, 2 power 2. So like that. So number 7, 2 power 2, 2 power 1 plus 2 power 0, 4 plus 2 plus 1, 7. So like that, you try to represent these numbers in powers of 2. Simple. Now, you try to identify, what are all the numbers that has 2 power 0 term. Okay, try to identify the numbers that has a term called 2 power 0. So if you see all odd numbers, odd digits, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11 contains 2 power 0. So you group them. Okay. So similarly, you try to identify the digits which has 2 power 1 term. That is 2, 3, 6, 7, 10, 11. Same way, 2 power 2 digits, 4, 5, 6, 7, 12. Similarly, 2 power 3 digits that has 2 power 3 is 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Done? Okay, so now what I am trying to do with this is, I have a data to transmit. So let you do it simultaneously with me. I'm giving the data to you. I'm giving data to you. So the data that I'm giving to you is 1, 0. Let you note it down. 1, 0, 1, 1, 1, 0, 0, 1. Okay. So total 8 bit I have given to you. I'll repeat the 8 bits. 1, 0, 1, 1, 1, 0, 0, 1. These 8 bits I am giving it to you. So your job is that, this is 8-bit data. You know the number of R bits, that is parity bits we call it as. So the minimum number of bits that you need to generate is how many? As per the inequality, it is 4 bits. M plus R plus 1 is less than or equal to 2 power R. That is your inequality. So 8 plus R plus 1 less than or equal to 2 power R. So 9 plus R less than or equal to 2 power R. The minimum value of R that satisfies this inequality is 4. So that's how 4 bits you are going to derive. So now as you can see in this slide that these 12 bits, okay, 8 plus 4 is 12, right? So out of this 12, you reserve the positions which are powers of 2. Okay, you reserve the positions which are powers of 2. So what are the powers of 2? 2 power 0, which is first position. 2 power 1, which is second position. 2 power 2, so which is fourth position. 2 power 3, which is eighth position. Okay, so these positions you reserve it as shown in the slide. Then the remaining bits you fill it up. So where to fill it up? How to fill it up? You follow little endian format. What is that little endian format? Can someone tell? Those who have understood in the lab, please tell what is that little endian format.
So LSB comes to the rightmost side and then we go leftwards.
Exactly. So the rightmost bit is LSB. Rightmost bit is LSB and leftmost is MSB. That is called little endian, ENDIAN, not IN. Okay, so little endian format. All Intel process follows this format only. Even we default, we follow this. However, so while explaining this example, some textbooks they follow big endian format. So that's why I'm specific about it. You should not be confused. So that's why I'm telling you, you try to follow little endian format only. Okay, so now what you should do now, how to fill the data? Can someone tell?
So we'll start from MSB and start
Yes,
filling the
yes,
data.
yes. Yeah, 12th bit. What is the 12th position bit value?
It is 1 at the moment. 1 0 1
Yes,
1
11th bit position value.
0.
Yes, 10th bit.
1.
9th bit.
1.
7th bit.
1.
8th bit we are reserving, right? So we
Yes,
are
sir.
going to derive it later. 6th bit.
0.
5th bit.
0.
3rd bit.
1.
Very good. So now let you derive the P bits. So I want to derive the P bit. P refers to parity bit of position 1. Okay. So let me call it as P0 or R0. Either way. So both are same. Okay. So P0 or R0, small r not. So how to derive this? So you come back here. So R0 is the position values, corresponding to 2 port 0. So that is R0 is equal to 1 XOR 3 XOR 5. So you can see here it is 1 3 5 7 9 11, all odd positions. R0 is 1 XOR 3 XOR 5 XOR 7 XOR 9 XOR 11. Okay, so the position values. So come back here. Yeah, what are that values? First position, what is the value? We don't know. We are deriving it. So you please ignore that for the time being. Then 3, third position value is 1. XOR 5, fifth position is 0. XOR 7, seventh position 1. XOR 9, ninth position 1. XOR 11, 11th position 0. So it is, what's the value? Pranav, can you tell what's the value of R0?
Yes, sir. Just a minute.
Huh? Please do this. Otherwise, you will be confused. So I'm trying to make the thing simple. So simultaneously, you do it along with me. It is simple XOR operations. Okay. Janvi Sahu. Janvi Sahu. Janvi Sahu. Jayesh Aryan. Jayesh Aryan. Karthik Hebbar.
Yes, sir. 1.
It is 1, exactly correct. So now let us calculate R1. R1 is, what is the value of R1? It is the number of positions. Okay, so the position values, the XR of the position values corresponding to 2 power 1 term. Okay, so what are that? 2 power R1 is 2 XR 3 XR 6 XR 7 XR 10 XR 11. So 2 is we are deriving now. So 3 is bit value is 1, XR 6 bit value is 0, 7 bit value is 1, so 10 is 1, 11th bit value is 0. So this is R1 is 1, if I am not wrong. Okay, same way R2 is the position bit values corresponding to 2 power 2, which is 4 XR 5 XR 6 XR 7 XR 12. So 4 we are yet to calculate. So 5 is 0 XR 6 0 XR 7 1 XR 12 1. So this is 0. And same way R3 is all position bit values corresponding to 2 power 3, which is 8 XR 9 XR 10 XR 11 XR 12. So 8 we are yet to calculate. So 9, which is 1 XR 10, which is 1 XR 11, which is 0 XR 12th position, which is 1. So it is 1. So now R3, R2, R1 or not. Okay. So it is 1 0 1 1. So let you tell me whether it is correct or not. 1 0 1 1. R3 is 1, R2 is 0, R1 is 1, R0 is 1. Any other answer that you got? Or is it same value?
So we got the same thing.
Same thing, fine. So now what you do is you substitute these values in your reserved positions. So we have reserved here. So R0 you substitute in the position 1. So R0 you substitute in the position 1. R1 you substitute in second position, which is 1. Again 1. So R2 you substitute in the position 4th, so which is 0. Then R3 you substitute in position 8, which is 1. So what is your code word now that you are going to transmit from the sender? It is 1 0 4 1s 0 0 1 1. 1 0 4 1s 0 0 1 1. Okay. So this is how you generate the code word for the given data bits. So you should decide, the number of parity bits that you need to generate based on the number of data bits that you have. So I have given 8 data bits. So 4 R bits or parity bits needs to be generated, and you have to substitute in the powers of 2 positions and form the code word. Fine. So total length of the code word is 12 bit. Now at the receiver, so what you should do is you should repeat the same XR operations in order to generate R0 to R3. Please do it quickly. So assume that the same code word is received at the receiver. Assume that the same code word is received at the receiver, and now you derive R0 to R3. Same way.
So all of them will be 0, right?
Yes. So all of them are zeros. It means that no errors at the receiver. It is successfully received without any errors. So that's the conclusion. If you arrive at non-zero R values, for instance, R0 is 1, R1 is 0, R2 is 0, R3 is 1. So 1001, for example, it means that there is ninth position is error, because 1001 means 9. So ninth position is error. So what you should do, if ninth position you have 0, you have to flip it to 1. If you have 1, you should flip it to 0. So like that. So the non-zero R values gives the position of the error. If you want, you can cross check. So you just flip any one of these 12 bits, you just you flip it. Okay, so you have the actual value is 1041s 000 so you flip any one of these bits and calculate the R0, R1, R2, R3. So you will get some non-zero value. So that non-zero value, that value indicates the position of the error. And remember, if you flip multiple bits, that means more than one errors if you introduce in the received code word, then you cannot detect the errors. You cannot detect the errors. So that is the conclusion. So we have derived it, we have formed the code word, and you can see. So here I have introduced a 5th bit error. I have introduced deliberately. Okay, so actual value of the 5th position is 1. So for this code word, if you derive R bits, it will be all zeros. So that means no error. So the 5th position I have changed it to 0. So now if I calculate R bits, what I got was 0101 I got. So it means that it is a 5th position. 0101 means 5. So 5th position there is an error. So you can flip that bit. So that is how you can achieve error detection and corrections. And remember, it helps you to correct only single bit errors, not multiple bit. Hamming code helps you to detect single bit errors. So you can take this as homework, which is 8-bit data given to you, and you can form the code word. And, yeah. So here, please don't consider this solution. So it indicates the big Indian format. So you have to do the other way. First position, you take it on the rightmost thing. So don't blindly follow the solution. So you follow the Little Indian format only. Okay. So that is about Hamming codes. So this is a 7-4 codes. So it means that 7 is the length of the code word, and 4 is your data. So obviously 7 minus 4 gives the number of R bits. So in this example, this is a slide taken from Forvision textbook. So he has appended at the end. So actually you have to append at powers of 2, right? So it's you have to append in powers of 2 positions. 2 power 0, 2 power 1, and 2 power 2, that is 4th position. But he has appended at the end, but the conceptually things are same. And this is a 2-dimensional thing that you can do that, so for example, Hamming code. So Hamming code, the equivalent ASCII values is this. And if you, so you can see, so for every bit, H corresponding to 100 and 1000. So this 7 bit, for this 7 bit, you generate R bits. Okay. So, and you will get the code word. So like that, you do it for all the characters. And what you can do is you can also do this coding horizontally as well as vertically. So two-dimensional way of doing it. Okay, so far we have done horizontally, so single dimension. So you will get some bits and you try to generate R bits and append it in PowerSoft 2. So same thing I can do vertically also. So you can see here, so that is also possible. Fine. And parity check, it's a simple thing that only one bit you are going to add. So either based on the even parity or odd parity, you are going to do it. So what is even parity? Can someone tell? What is even parity?
Sir, when the number of ones in the data is even, that is even parity.
Number of ones in the data is even, that is even parity. Okay, so total number of ones, right? So total number of ones should be even. So that is what even parity says. So now what you should do here is you generate this parity bit. You generate the parity bit. And see here, this example, you can see the number of ones in the data is even, so p bit is 0. So at the receiver, if there is any particular bit is flipped, so the number of ones gets changed now. Okay, so now it shows the error. At the receiver, if we calculate number of ones, it is 3, so it violates the even parity principle. So you can say that there is some error. So which position, we don't know. So parity check, it helps you to detect the single bit errors. If two bits gets flipped, again the parity value will be same, so you cannot detect the errors. But anyhow, it helps you to detect the single bit errors, at least odd number of bits. Okay, so this is again a Farujan example where you have 4-bit data and one parity bit you are going to append. So altogether the length of the code word is 5. So which parity is followed? Can someone tell whether it is even parity or odd parity? So the LSB of the code word is your parity bit. The LSB of the code word is your parity bit, which is appended 1.
Even.
So it's a even parity. So altogether the number of ones including the parity should be even. So simple. Okay. So even parity means the number of ones in the given code including the parity bit should be even. So that is what even parity is. So accordingly, you have to derive this LSB bit in the code word. In the message bit, already if you have even number of bits, then parity is 0. In the data word, if you have odd number of ones, then your parity bit is 1. So that is how you have to follow for even parity. So the other way is for odd parity. And in the next class, we will look at CRC, cyclic redundancy check, which is very, very important. Okay, so we'll try to wind up here. So I suggest you to follow, right? So there are many people who are not responding, so we don't know how to consider them. So in what way we should understand if the student is not responding in the online class, so how to take that. So I request all class years, so please make sure that when you are participating in the class, please make sure that you are listening to the class and responding to the questions that we raise in between. It should not be one way of teaching. So it should be a sort of discussions kind of stuff. That is what I expect in the class. It is not that one way that I go on teaching it and don't bother whether the student is receiving or not. So that should not happen. So please cooperate. Make sure that you are listening and responding to answers. All CRs, please respond now. Can you able to do it? Be able
Yes,
to
sir.
convince your classmates that please respond for the questions that we raise in between. Can you do it for your section people?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Very good, very good. That is what we expect. The cooperation should be from both the sides. And Tuesday, the next class may not be. Okay, so I'm going on leave, so you can expect the next class is on next Friday. Okay. Hope you understand this. Please respond, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
It is good. At least class cancellation means you may feel happy. So at least you can respond for that. So I'm going on leave. That's why I'm forced to cancel the class. However, we'll continue in the next Friday. Okay, we'll meet again on the next Friday. So if you have any doubts so far, maybe in the today's class you can ask before we wind up the class. Are you okay with the speed or whatever the expectations that you have? So are you okay with this?
Yes, sir. Okay.
Or any changes that you are expecting, the kind of teaching or speed or whatever?
Yes, sir. This is okay.
Fine. So, and the last thing that I want to highlight regarding the CN projects is that there are some clarifications that were expected by the students, a few students. So, accordingly, I made things much more clear, and I have updated the instructions. Please, maybe yesterday. Yes, yesterday I have sent the updated guidelines to be followed in order to execute the CN project, lab project. So I request each and every one of you to go through it properly and try to understand it. If you have any glitches in understanding, please let me know. You can communicate over phone and try to get clarifications. But please, don't ignore them. So it's quite challenging for both of us. Okay, so maybe you are new to do this kind of projects and you are new to the concepts as well. So definitely we'll support. I have already given 20 titles as per my research area. Okay, so I'm actively working in the area where I have given the titles, and maybe if you are not satisfied with that, maybe I can give few more, and I can guide you. Whatever the titles that I have given, definitely I have some sort of understanding, and already I have worked and published articles related to those stuff, and a few more things also I can give. Few more titles I can give it. So most of them are MATLAB based, and the code is already ready. Your contribution is to understand the fundamentals of it. The code as well as the minimum explanation will be already there as a comments in the MATLAB code. So you should understand the fundamentals behind it and the code. Okay, so that is your contribution, and at the end of the day you should be able to justify the results, how they are, you are getting that results, and why you are getting such results. So if you able to understand, explain it, so that's enough. So we expect that the hot topics in the communication domain should be picked up by the student and try to explore it and learn something. That's the end of the doing the projects. Okay, you should learn something new which was not taught in the class, or not known earlier. Okay, so that is the idea. So don't limit yourself that somehow we have to complete the project for sake of doing it, for the sake of one credit, like that. But take it as an opportunity to explore the things, and already you may be having some ideas in your mind where you do not have a scope to implement it, and there is no weightage in the academics. So that kind of things try to explore, think of it, and make sure that we have a limitation that it should be related to communication networks, at least the communication domain aspects. Okay, I cannot allow you digital image processing or circuit based electronic circuit, something like that. Maybe Arduino board to do some controlling processing kind of thing, but communication should be present, the aspects. Otherwise the freedom is given to you. Okay, so you are free to select the kind of topic or language tool that you want. So the freedom is there, and from my side I can assist you. Okay, so there are see some thing I want to highlight, that there are students who communicate saying orally or mail, saying that I want to do something like this, please let me know if someone is already opted this. See, I cannot decide based on that, so I can suggest you whether it is acceptable or not only when you send the synopsis. Okay, so in the IEEE format you should send the synopsis that contains the clear abstract, what is the objective of your work. Okay, I can understand that you may not have that much clarity, so that's why I ask you to start writing it. So then you will come to know new things. Okay, you will get a lot of question marks. So when you talk orally, so you will be limited. So you don't think beyond it. So when you put the things on the paper and writing it, so you will yourself will get a lot of question marks, and you try to explore the answers for it, and finally you will arrive at a proper objective of your work. Okay, so once you do that and send the abstract, I will go through it, and I can suggest based on that. So orally, if you make a call and ask, sir, I want to do, I have this idea, and please let me know if someone is opted. So I cannot give answer at that point of time. The first come first serve basis, it means that whoever submits the synopsis in IEEE format, so they will be served first. So that's how it works. Okay. Still any doubts regarding that? So hope you have gone through the guidelines that was sent yesterday. So if you have still any doubts, please let me know at this point of time. Quickly I can address it. See, the procedure is simple, that once the things are there, like once the abstract is as per the guidelines, then definitely it will be forwarded to your batch faculty. You need not to do anything. Once you send to coordinator and the coordinator replies that the coordinator gives a positive response, and the same thing will be forwarded to students, I mean faculty. So you will also come to know, you will be under CC. Okay, I will send a mail to faculty keeping CC to you, and the decision will be at the faculty side, and you can expect decision from your respective batch faculty. Understand the flow. Okay, so you need not to come all the way to me.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt, but our class has started, sir, 4 o'clock. Can we leave?
Yes, go ahead. Just I want to give clarification. So we'll wind up here.
Yes. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.